Here's a great detailed summary of the passage you shit, written in very simple, clear language and covering all the main points and deeper meanings. Summary of the passage. King Siyaka's entry into the Rashtrakuta palace. King Siyaka Paramara of the Malwa region had once been a less powerful king, forced to bow before the mighty Rashtrakuta emperors of the south. In the past, he had to wait in their palace courtyards with others treated like a servant, watching golden sticks strike the ground as a signal to slowly walk deeper into the palace and kneel at the emperor's feet. It was a deeply humiliating experience. But now, things had changed completely. Siyaka had grown strong. He had built an army, fought back, and defeated the Rashtrakutas. Now he entered their grand imperial palace in Manyaketa, not as a servant, but as the new master. He walked with pride through the beautiful courtyards, followed by his soldiers and generals, including his son Vakpati, a poet and warrior. Inside the palace, Siyaka saw and took control of the offices and official records, including copper plates where old royal orders were written. He was now in charge of the empire's system. The palace itself was full of beauty and wonder. There were murals, wall paintings, stone carvings, and carefully arranged gardens with flowers, water fountains, and artificial hills. It even had pleasure buildings and bathhouses, and incredible water-powered machines shaped like lotuses, animals, and women, inspired by advanced technology from Baghdad and Constantinople. Siyaka may have sat on the lion throne of a once great emperor named Amogavarsha, feeling proud of his new power and victory, while his enemies now suffered defeat. What this all means. The passage shows a big turning point in Indian history, a shift of power from the Rashtrakutas to the Paramaras. It highlights how empires rise and fall, and how today's servant can become tomorrow's ruler. It also paints a picture of how rich, artistic, and advanced Indian royal palaces were even 1,000 years ago. It reminds us how war and politics were full of emotion, pride, humiliation, and revenge. Would you like me to turn this into a story-style version, a visual diagram, or a short animated-style summary? Here's a great detailed summary of the passage you provided, written in clear, simple language, but with depth and context so you understand both the story and its meaning. Detailed summary. The fall of the Rashtrakutas. The Rashtrakuta Empire was once one of the strongest and most powerful empires in medieval India. At its height under King Kurd, it controlled vast areas of the Deccan in southern India, and other smaller kings, called vassals, had to bow to its authority. Its capital city, Manyaketa, was rich, beautiful, and a symbol of power. But suddenly, this great empire collapsed. What happened? A regional king named Siyaka from the Paramara dynasty in present-day Madhya Pradesh boldly attacked and captured Manyaketa, the capital of the Rashtrakutas. Although Krishna III sent his general Marasimha Twek with Ganga troops, soldiers from a loyal allied kingdom, and managed to drive Siyaka out, the damage had already been done. The empire had lost its main city, its wealthy lands, and its ability to control other kingdoms, even though Rashtrakuta rulers still called themselves emperors, Shri Prithivi Vallabha. They were ignored by other rulers because they had no money, and no power left. Why did this happen so fast? This collapse happened very quickly, within just a few years after their peak, and this surprised many historians. But the passage explains that winning wars and looking powerful on the outside isn't enough to stay strong forever. There may have been hidden weaknesses. The Rashtrakutas may have been too proud, hubris. They may have tried to rule more territory than they could manage, imperial overreach. Their relationship with their vassals may have been tense or unstable. There may have been economic problems. Maybe tax systems or trade was breaking down. Historians still don't fully know what caused the collapse because not enough evidence has survived from that time. The big lesson. The fall of the Rashtrakutas teaches us that no empire is safe ever, no matter how big or strong it looks. Power can disappear quickly if deeper problems go unaddressed. Truly understand history, we need to look beyond wars and kings and understand economies, alliances, society, and more. Until we discover more ancient records and archaeological evidence, the Rashtrakuta collapse will remain a powerful example of how even the greatest dynasties can suddenly fall because of pride, hope, and the hidden forces of history. Would you like a visual timeline or simplified bullet version of this too? Here is a great detailed summary of the passage about Tela, explained in the simplest and clearest way. Summary: the rise of Tela. The Rashtrakuta collapse. After the fall of the Rashtrakuta Empire, a man named Tela began to rise in power. But who was Tela? Tela had been a high-ranking military officer, important army leader, under the Rashtrakuta. He was loyal, hardworking, and successful in his job. As a reward, the king gave him a title, Raja, and put him in charge of a large region that included 1,000 villages near the capital, Manyaketa. Tela also had a political marriage. He married a woman from a minor branch of the Rashtrakuta royal family. This may have been arranged by the king to reward and honor Tela. Later, when Tela became more powerful, he claimed to be descended from the ancient Chalukya dynasty, a famous royal family that had ruled parts of the Deccan long ago. Whether this was true or made up is not clear. Many people used the Chalukya name just to sound royal. Even if he was royal by birth, Tela was smart and experienced in politics, well connected with other military leaders and court officials, clever in dealing with power struggles, especially during the messy time after the empire collapsed. In this period of confusion and opportunity, many warlords tried to grab power. Tela knew who they were and how they operated. This gave him a strong advantage and set the stage for his own rise to power. Key points to remember. Tela worked under the Rashtrakutas and gained trust and rewards. He ruled over 1,000 villages as a local king, Raja. He married into the royal family, which helped boost his status. He later claimed royal ancestry from the Chalukyas. He was clever in politics and knew how to use chaos to rise in power. After the empire's fall, he was well positioned to take control. Let me know if you want a timeline visual diagram of this. Here is a great detailed summary of the passage in very simple, clear language. Context. After the fall of the Rashtrakutas. After the powerful Rashtrakuta Empire collapsed, their capital city Manyaketa was left open. This created a chance for new leaders to rise and take control. Of Manyaketa. A man named Tela, who used to be an officer in the Rashtrakuta army, took control of Manyaketa after Siaka, the king who had attacked it, left. By capturing the capital, Tela made himself an important figure in the new political world that was forming. Tela's Chalukya identity and its power. People around Tela began saying that he belonged to the old and famous Chalukya dynasty, even though there wasn't clear proof of it. By that time, most real memories of the old Chalukyas were lost. People no longer remembered their long family histories or stories. But symbols of the Chalukyas remained strong in people's minds, like their name, their boar flag, a famous saying about Vishnu being the boar, a heroic godly image. These symbols gave Tela's claim emotional and cultural power. In medieval South India, remembered history, even if vague, was a strong political tool. People trusted names from the past. Tela's rise was not guaranteed. Later on, people wrote as if Tela's success was certain. But back in the 900s, it was actually very uncertain. Tela was not the most powerful man. In fact, there were others who had stronger claims and more royal blood. Other rivals, Rajaditya and Marasimha. The biggest rival was Rajaditya Chalukya, who was likely a real descendant of the old Chalukya kings. He was married to royal women from both the Ganga and Rashtrakuta families. He led the group that wanted to stop the Rashtrakutas from returning to power. On the other side was King Marasimha II from the Ganga dynasty. He supported a grandson of a former Rashtrakuta king. This side wanted to bring the Rashtrakutas back. Summary in one sentence. Tela rose war by taking control of the Rashtrakutas' old capital and claiming a connection to the famous Chalukya dynasty. But his rise was not guaranteed. He had strong rivals and succeeded by smartly using symbols of the past and building support during a time of great chaos and competition. Would you like a timeline or visual chart of this summary too? Sure. Here's a great, detailed, and easy-to-understand summary of the passage about Taila and the struggle for power in the Deccan after the fall of the Rashtrakutas. Detailed summary. After the powerful Rashtrakuta Empire collapsed, their capital Manyakheta was sacked by Siaka. Many rulers started fighting to take control of the Deccan region. This created a period of chaos and competition. One of these powerful challengers was Vakpati Paramara, the son of Siaka. He had conquered Manyakheta and ruled over Malwa, central India. He gave himself big royal titles like Maharaja Dhiraja, King of Kings, and Amogavarsha, comparing himself to past famous rulers. He tried to expand his kingdom by crossing the Narmada River and attacking the Deccan region multiple times. But Vakpati wasn't the only one trying to take control. Another young Rashtrakuta prince, supported by two powerful and influential ministers, also claimed the throne. Meanwhile, many smaller kingdoms in the Deccan had become independent after the Rashtrakutas fell. These small rulers didn't want to go back to being part of a big empire ruled from a faraway capital. In the middle of all this, a smart and ambitious man named Taila, also spelled Tailapa, slowly rose to power. Taila had once been a military officer under the Rashtrakutas. After the empire fell, he began gathering support from other powerful men, like local governors and landlords, who were also looking for new opportunities. He rewarded them with land, wealth, and titles if they were loyal to him and helped him fight. Taila's allies were very capable warriors, and some even had titles like Wrestler of Hill Forts, showing they were good at capturing difficult mountain forts. Together, they started convincing or defeating the remaining supporters of the Rashtrakutas, slowly building a new power base. Even though Taila later seemed like a strong and obvious leader, his rise was not guaranteed. He was one of many people trying to claim power, but he and his faction were very smart. They waited until other big rivals had weakened each other through war, and then struck at the right moment. The creation of this new power, the Chalukyas under Taila, came through bloody battles and careful planning. Main points recap. After the Rashtrakutas fell, many rulers fought to take over the Deccan. Siaka's son Vakpati Paramara tried to become emperor by attacking south of the Narmada. A Rashtrakuta prince with ministerial support also tried to reclaim power. Smaller kingdoms wanted to stay independent. Taila, a former officer, slowly gathered loyal followers and powerful warriors. He rewarded supporters with land and wealth. His group waited for the right moment to strike while others fought. Taila eventually created a new Chalukya Empire, replacing the Rashtrakutas. Would you like a timeline, map, or character guide to go with this summary? Here's a great detailed summary of the passage you shared, written in very simple language but with deep understanding. Summary of the passage, detailed and simple. In the year 974 CE, a major shift happened in South Indian politics. At that time, the Ganga king Marasimha Sek was one of the most powerful rulers. He had gained a lot of land and fame by helping the Rashtrakuta emperor Krishna III in wars across India. As a reward, Krishna III gave him more land and power. Marasimha even managed to make some Tamil kings surrender to him, which showed how influential he was. Marasimha's plan was to restore the Rashtrakuta Empire by placing a puppet king, a king who would follow his orders, back on the Rashtrakuta throne at Manyakheta, the old capital. But he wasn't the only one who wanted to control the Deccan region. Another powerful man, Rajaditya Chalukya, who claimed to be from the famous Chalukya dynasty, also wanted the throne. Rajaditya had strong family ties and support. So a big battle broke out between Marasimha and Rajaditya near a fort called Uchangi in what is today Karnataka. The battle was long, difficult, and extremely destructive. It was so bad that Rajaditya was either killed or removed from the competition completely. Even Marasimha, though technically the winner, was exhausted and gave up his political ambitions after the fight. Marasimha was a Jain, a religion that values peace and nonviolence. So he gave up his crown, left the throne, and spent a year traveling around his kingdom. Finally, he went to Bankapura, a city in Karnataka, where he fasted to death over 3 days in a religious act of self-purification and spiritual completion. This was considered a noble end in Jainism, and it was done in front of his religious teacher, Ajitasena. A poet, feeling both sadness and pride, wrote a poetic tribute to Marasimha's death, telling enemy kings like the Pandyas and Pallavas not to be afraid anymore, because the great Ganga king had left the world and gone to heaven. Right after Marasimha's death, Taila, a powerful and ambitious general, saw a chance. He quickly marched his army into Gangavadi, Marasimha's kingdom, in today's southern Karnataka, and took control of it. This victory made Taila even stronger and helped him build the foundation of a new empire that would later become very important in South Indian history. Key people and places to help you remember. Marasimha II, Ganga king, once very powerful, gave up power and died by fasting. Rajaditya Chalukya, rival of Marasimha, wanted to rule Deccan, lost in battle. Taila, ambitious general who took over Marasimha's land after his death. Uchangi, place of the big battle. Bankapura, where Marasimha fasted to death. Manyaketa, the old Rashtrakuta capital. Gangavadi, region taken over by Taila after Marasimha died. Would you like a timeline, a visual diagram, or a map to make this even easier to follow? Here's a clear and detailed summary of the passage, written in simple and understandable language, but still rich in context and meaning. Summary of Taila's final rise and the showdown with Vakpati Paramara, 994 to 996 CE. By the year 980 CE, Taila II, a powerful leader who claimed descent from the ancient Chalukya dynasty, had successfully established himself as the ruler of much of Karnataka in South India. He had defeated local families who controlled the mountainous western Ghats, conquered Goa, making its rulers surrender, and brought large parts of the southern and western Deccan region under his control. At this point, Taila had nearly completed his mission to restore Chalukya rule in the south. The only major threat left was a northern Indian king named Vakpati Paramara, who was the son of Siaka, the man who had sacked the Chalukya capital Manyaketa in 972 CE, had declared himself Prithivi Vallabha, a royal title used by former Deccan emperors, claiming he was the rightful ruler of the region, had led multiple raids into the Deccan, attempting to establish dominance. But now, raids weren't enough. Vakpati saw that Taila had become too powerful, and that only a full-scale war could settle who truly ruled the Deccan. Around 994 to 996 CE, Vakpati decided to take a huge risk. He would launch a major military invasion into Taila's territory and try to take over Manyaketa once and for all. A legendary story from centuries later says that Vakpati's minister warned him not to go, saying it would end in disaster. The king ignored him, and the minister, in despair, burned himself alive, a practice called self-immolation. This story, though possibly exaggerated, reflects the real danger Vakpati faced. In the end, Vakpati's decision proved fatal. His gamble didn't pay off. Taila defeated him, and the battle became so famous that it was passed down through oral stories and later written into a Jain monk's book in 14th century Gujarat. Key themes and takeaways. Taila's rise to power was gradual but smart. He built alliances, crushed rivals, and waited for the right moment. Vakpati's ambition drove him to overreach. He tried to rule an area far from his base, in a land already stabilizing under Taila. The conflict between the north, Vakpati, and the south, Taila, was about more than land. It was about imperial legitimacy, power, and memory. The story shows how legends form around real political events, with characters like the wise but doomed minister adding drama to history. Would you like this in a bullet point version? or a timeline for quick reference. Here's a detailed, easy-to-understand summary of the passage you shared, written in clear, plain language like a brilliant teacher explaining it step by step. Summary: the great defeat of Vakpati and the rise of Tila's Chalukyas. A long time ago in medieval India, a king from Malwa named Vakpati attacked the Deccan region in the south. He led his army bravely across big rivers like the Narmada and Godavari and over the Vindhya mountains. His goal was to conquer new lands and expand his power. But he made a big mistake. He didn't realize that he was walking trap. Another group, the Sona Yadavas, who ruled parts of northern Deccan, had once been independent, but had now joined forces with Tila, a powerful king from the Chalukya dynasty. These Yadavas pretended to be neutral at first, but when Vakpati's army had gone deep into enemy land, they attacked from behind. They cut off his supply lines, which means Vakpati's army couldn't get food, water, or help from home. They also blocked his communications, so he couldn't send messages or ask for support. He and his army were stuck, hungry, tired, and alone. With no escape, Vakpati's army was completely destroyed, and Vakpati himself was captured. It was one of the biggest military failures in Indian history. What started as a bold invasion ended in total defeat. This battle made it clear that Tila and his Chalukya dynasty were now the most powerful rulers in the region. No one could challenge them. Tila took on a grand royal title, Shri Prithvi Vallabha Maharaja, which means Lord of the Earth and King of Kings. Everyone had to accept his leadership. Many other powerful families, like the Gangas, Rashtrakutas, Paramaras, and even other Chalukyas, were crushed or had already surrendered to Tila. Even smaller like the Shilaharas, Yadavas, and dozens of local kings gave up and accepted his rule. There's a poetic part too. Many kings, like Krishna I of the Rashtrakutas, like to describe their victories in grand language. Krishna once said he had taken away the goddess of royal fortune from the Chalukyas, like stealing a bride from a wedding. Later, the Yadavas, who helped Tila, joked that they had beaten up that same fortune goddess for helping Vakpati and forced her to become a housewife in Tila's palace, meaning Tila now owned all the luck, power, and success. But history didn't stop there. Many years later, the same Yadavas would be defeated themselves, this time by Alauddin Khilji, a powerful king from Delhi. He captured their capital, later Bad, and the city became part of the Tughlaq Sultanate. What this story shows us: good planning and strong alliances, like Tila's with the Yadavas, can decide the outcome of wars. A single mistake in judgment, like Vakpati's deep invasion, can destroy even the strongest army. Power in medieval India often shifted through clever strategies, not just fighting. Kings used poetry and grand titles to show their victories and scare rivals. Even powerful rulers eventually fall, like the Yadavas, who later to the Delhi Sultanate. Would you like a visual map or character chart to help remember all these names and places? Here's a detailed but simple summary of the full story you just read, written clearly so that anyone, even with no background knowledge, can understand it. Summary: the fall of Vakpati and the rise of Chalukya power. 1. Who was Vakpati? Vakpati was a king of the Paramara dynasty in Malwa, a region in central India. His father Syaka had earlier attacked and burned Manyaketa, the capital of the powerful Chalukya dynasty in the Deccan, southern India. This created a long-standing rivalry between the Paramaras and the Chalukyas. 2. Vakpati's invasion and the trap. Years later, Vakpati tried to expand his empire by invading the Deccan region again. As he moved deep into enemy territory, a clever trap was laid. The Suna Yadavas, local rulers of northern Deccan, who were secretly loyal to the Chalukyas, cut off Vakpati's supply lines and communication. As a result, Vakpati's army got stranded without food, help, or a way to retreat. The Chalukya king Tila launched an attack, defeated Vakpati's army, and captured Vakpati himself. 3. Vakpati's humiliating end. After the battle, Vakpati was not killed immediately. Instead, the Chalukyas publicly humiliated him to send a strong warning to others. He was stripped, put in a cage, and paraded through the streets of Manyaketa. He was made to beg for food from the same people whose city his father had destroyed years ago. He was likely chained, beaten, insulted, and left under the hot sun, becoming dirty and almost unrecognizable. After days of humiliation, Vakpati was taken outside the city and impaled on a wooden stake, a slow and painful execution, and then beheaded. His rotting head was covered with sour milk and put on display in the Chalukya royal court to show off their victory and strength. Shash 4. Why it was important. This defeat marked one of the biggest military failures in medieval Indian history. It proved that the Chalukyas under King Taila had fully regained their power and could now claim the proud title of Maharajadhiraja, King of Kings. With Vakpati defeated, several other dynasties like the Gangas, Rashtrakutas, and minor Chalukya branches had also been either defeated or forced to accept Chalukya control. Shah 5. What else was happening in the world? At the same time, big changes were happening outside India too. In the Islamic world, the once powerful Abbasid Caliphate based in Baghdad was breaking apart. In 969 AD, a new empire called the Fatimid Caliphate rose in Egypt. They claimed descent from the Prophet Muhammad's daughter, Fatima. The Fatimids built a new capital city called Cairo, Al-Qahira, which became a rich and powerful center of trade and culture. Trade routes across the Red Sea and Indian Ocean became active again. Ships started sailing from Egypt to India, just like they had in Roman times. Shish 6. Final thoughts. This moment in history was a turning point. In India, it showed how powerful regional kings like Taila could crush even mighty opponents like Vakpati. In the larger world, it showed how empires are replaced, sometimes brutally, like Vakpati's story, sometimes through new growth, like the founding of Cairo. It also reminds us that politics in history wasn't just about battles. It involved humiliation, public messaging, alliances, trade, and timing. Let me know if you'd like this in a timeline, map, or even file breakdown to help you visualize it better. Here's a great detailed summary of the passage you shared, explained in simple, clear language so anyone can understand it easily. Summary. How Song Dynasty China became the center of the world, 960s to 1100 CE. Around the year 960 CE, a powerful new royal family called the Song Dynasty came to power in China. This started a time of huge progress in almost every area: farming, technology, business, art, population, and international trade. Hasher 1. China becomes the world's center. China became the most important hub of trade, culture, and inventions in the world. It was called the World Axis, meaning it became the main center connecting different parts of the world, especially Africa, Europe, and Asia. 2. Incredible inventions and growth. The Song Dynasty created amazing things. Gunpowder, used in both fireworks and weapons. Huge amounts of iron, almost like an early version of the Industrial Revolution. New kinds of rice and crops were brought from Southeast Asia. Better irrigation systems were built to water farms more easily. As a result, more food was grown and people lived healthier lives. 3. Population explosion. Because of all this progress, China's population grew from 32 million to 121 million between 961 to 1109 CE. Many people moved to southern China, where the land was rich and good for farming. Big cities grew fast, becoming busy centers of trade and culture. 4. Huge increase in trade and business. The government encouraged private businesses. People were allowed to start their own shops and trading companies. Luxury items from around the world came into China. Spices like black pepper and cloves, fancy goods like rosewater, glass, coral, carved ivory, and colorful fabrics. People from Arabia, India, Southeast Asia, and beyond came to China to trade. China's income from international trade grew 20 times larger than it had been before. 5. China sends out trade missions. In the year 987 CE, the Song Emperor sent out 4 official missions, groups of ambassadors, to other countries to invite more traders to come to China, offer special trading benefits, build stronger international connections. 6. trade route through Southeast Asia and South India. These Chinese missions first went to the Srivijaya Confederacy, a group of cities across modern Indonesia and Malaysia. The main city was Srivijaya, Palembang. They controlled the Straits of Malacca, a key sea passage between China and India. Then the missions reached South India, where new kingdoms like the Chalukyas were becoming more powerful. 7. Result: a more connected world. These Chinese efforts helped build a strong global network of trade across the Indian Ocean. This contributed to the rise of new political powers in places like India and Southeast Asia. It helped form a thickening world system, a world where countries were more connected than ever before through trade, culture, and travel. In short, during the Song dynasty, China became the world's richest, smartest, and most connected country. It grew super fast, invented amazing things, became a trade superpower, and built relationships with other kingdoms, especially in Southeast Asia and South India. This helped create a new world where countries across Asia and beyond started working more closely together. Would you like a visual diagram animated timeline to go with this? Here's a great detailed summary of the passage in the simplest and clearest possible way. Summary: the rise of Tamil powers after the Rashtrakuta decline. In South India, known as Tamilakam, an important turning point happened in the mid-900s CE. A powerful king named Krishna III from the Rashtrakuta dynasty killed the crown prince of the Chola dynasty in 949 CE. This temporarily weakened the Cholas and gave Krishna control over large parts of Tamil land. He gave away Tamil land to his own loyal followers from the Deccan region, central southern India, weakening older local dynasties like the Pallavas. However, when Krishna III died in 967, his vassals, subordinate kings, went back north to fight for power in the Deccan. This left a power vacuum, no one strong in control, in Tamilakam. The Cholas quickly bounced back. The younger brothers of the dead Chola prince became strong leaders and regained Chola territories, especially the rich lands around the Kaveri River. They even took over the lands of the Pallavas. At the same time, the Chera dynasty in what is now Kerala controlled busy trade ports on the west coast. The Pandya dynasty ruled southern Tamil Nadu around Madurai. Each of these dynasties claimed to be descendants of ancient Tamil kings, mentioned in old poetry, called Sangam poetry. They tried to connect themselves to the classical age of Tamil culture, though there is no real proof for most of those claims. Tamilakam at this time had a complex political system with many small local powers. Villages, Brahmin settlements, religious scholars, and local landlords all had a lot of control. Any large Tamil kingdom had to work hard to control all these smaller groups. Even though this system of many centers of power could have continued for centuries, in reality, strong and ambitious leaders emerged from the intense competition. These kings were great at war and politics and succeeded in building large, powerful empires, especially the Cholas, who soon became one of the most dominant powers in Indian and even Indian Ocean history. Would you like a timeline or a map to go with this summary for easier understanding? Sure. Here's a great detailed summary of the full story, written in very simple and clear English, so you can understand it easily and remember it well. Detailed summary: the rise of Rajaraja Chola and the attack on Kandalur. In the year 985 AD, a young prince named Arulmojivarman became the king of the Chola dynasty in South India. When he became king, he took a new name, Rajaraja Chola, which means King of Kings. India was divided between many kingdoms, including the Cholas, Pandyas, and Chera dynasty. These kingdoms were constantly fighting each other for power, land, and control of trade. By defeating the Pandyas, Rajaraja made the Cholas the strongest kingdom in the northern and eastern parts of Tamil-speaking South India. But he didn't want to stop there. He wanted to become a truly great king, richer and more powerful than any who came before him. He knew that controlling trade was the best way to do this. If he could take over the ports and sea routes where merchants came and went, he could make the Chola kingdom very rich and very famous. However, Rajaraja soon discovered that the Chera kingdom in the west, Malabar coast, was getting a lot of foreign traders from distant lands, especially from Fatimid Egypt. These Egyptian traders were wealthy and brought valuable goods. They were sailing across the sea and trading with the Cheras, not the Cholas. This made Rajaraja act fast. He realized he had to take control of these trade routes. Around this time, a major port named Kandalur, located in Chera territory, was one of the richest and busiest ports. It had possibly the largest collection of ships at that time, hundreds of them, mostly owned by merchant corporations, large groups of traders and business people. Rajaraja planned a surprise attack on this port. He struck when all the ships were still in the harbor, possibly getting ready to leave for the year's trading season. This was the most vulnerable moment for the port. Rajaraja ordered the entire fleet to be burned, destroying many merchant ships in one powerful move. This act severely damaged the Chera kingdom's economy and trade and gave Rajaraja control over a key trade center. This attack also happened around the same time when Song China, another powerful empire, was starting to send diplomatic missions, embassies, to the Indian Ocean region. This means the Indian Ocean was becoming more and more important for global trade. Rajaraja's move was perfectly timed. He made sure the Cholas were in a strong position just as more international trade and interest came into the region. This event marked the beginning of Rajaraja's rise to becoming one of the greatest kings in Indian history. He used smart planning, timing, and bold action to defeat rivals, take control of trade routes, and build the foundation of a powerful Chola empire that would later spread across India and Southeast Asia. Let me know if you'd like a visual map or illustrated timeline to go along with this. Here's a great detailed summary of the passage, written in clear and simple language with rich explanations. This will help you understand the events, meaning, and importance of what happened during Rajaraja Chola's early rise to power. Detailed summary of the event at Kandalur. Around the year 985 CE, Rajaraja Chola became king of the Chola dynasty, one of the most powerful kingdoms in South India. Early in his rule, he realized that to make the Cholas stronger and richer, he had to control trade, especially sea trade. At that time, foreign traders from places like Egypt and China were sailing to India, especially to the Malabar coast, modern-day Kerala, where a kingdom called the Chera dynasty ruled. One of the most important ports in that area was Kandalur. It was full of ships owned by rich merchant groups and was probably the largest collection of ships in South India at that time. Rajaraja Chola saw this as a big opportunity to take control of trade and gain wealth and power. So he decided to attack the port of Kandalur, which was under Chera control. The attack was violent and shocking. Old writings tell us that the ships at the port were painted in bright colors, white, red, yellow, blue, and had beautifully carved fronts, prows, shaped like animals. Lions, elephants, snakes, buffaloes, birds, tigers, and even humans. Their sails were also colorful, white, red, yellow, and black. When Rajaraja's army attacked, they set fire to the ships. The colorful sails burned and ripped apart in the wind, shooting sparks and smoke into the sky. The fire spread fast from one ship to the next, helped by the strong sea breeze. The masts, tall poles that held sails, collapsed, and the heavy teak wood, a very strong kind of wood used in shipbuilding, cracked from the heat and sank into the sea. The ocean was rough and full of burning debris. Rajaraja's soldiers cheered as they destroyed the port. At the same time, they raided the town, stole goods, and stopped crying merchants with spears from saving their ships and property. The merchants could do nothing but watch in horror as their ships, wealth, and dreams burned. This attack gave Rajaraja colossal huge loot, a massive amount of treasure and goods. More importantly, it sent a clear message to everyone in the region. The Cholas are now in charge. If you want to trade, you must deal with us. This was the beginning of Rajaraja's rise as a great ruler and conqueror. He didn't just fight wars, he planned them strategically. carefully and intelligently. He knew when to attack, how to get the most power, and how to make sure everyone heard about it. Over the next 10 years, Rajaraja continued to conquer other areas, especially lands that once belonged to the Pandyas, another rival dynasty. He took over their territory and appointed his own governors to rule those areas. This helped him expand the Chola Empire and make it one of the strongest and richest kingdoms in Indian history. Why this event was so important? It showed Rajaraja's military power. It helped the Cholas control trade, which brought money and influence. It weakened rival kingdoms like the Cheras and Pandyas. It showed that Rajaraja was a master strategist, not just a warrior. It marked the start of the Chola Empire's golden age. Would you like this turned into a timeline, a comic-style scene, or a story version from a soldier's or merchant's point of view? Here is a great detailed summary of the you shared, explained clearly and simply so anyone can understand. Detailed summary: Rajaraja Chola's invasion of Sri Lanka. Shortly after becoming king, Rajaraja Chola heard some important news. The Sri Lankan king's own army was falling apart. This army, made of mercenaries, soldiers hired from Karnataka and Kerala, had started rebelling. It was the perfect moment to attack. Rajaraja acted quickly and smartly. He sent his army across the sea to Sri Lanka. The Chola army marched deep into the island, not just attacking the edges, but striking at the heart of the kingdom. They attacked and destroyed Anuradhapura, the ancient capital of the Sinhala kingdom. This city had been a center of power and religion for over 1,000 years. The Cholas captured the chief queen and took away the royal crown, sword, and jewels. These were not just valuables, they were the king's power. Taking them meant the king had been totally defeated. Then, the Cholas looted the northern part of Sri Lanka. They especially targeted Buddhist religious sites like stupas and viharas, temples and monasteries. These places held golden statues, sacred relics, and were supported by nearby villages. The Cholas took everything valuable. The destruction was so shocking that later Sri Lankan writers said the Cholas were like blood-sucking demons, not humans. After destroying and stealing so much, Rajaraja didn't just leave. He took over and made sure the Cholas stayed in control. He built Hindu Shiva temples, including in Polonnaruwa, another important city. Stationed soldiers, a garrison, there to keep control. Made Sri Lanka part of his growing Chola Empire. By taking over northern Sri Lanka, Rajaraja also took control of the Palk Strait, the narrow sea between India and Sri Lanka. This was a major sea route for ships from Arabia, East Africa, India, and China. Whoever controlled the strait could control trade and make huge profits. With this bold move, Rajaraja not only became the most powerful ruler in South India, but also a dominant force in the Indian Ocean. He made sure merchants had to cooperate with the Cholas to trade. This invasion showed that Rajaraja was a brilliant military and political leader who could turn any weakness into his advantage. Key points at a glance. Sri Lankan king's army, mercenaries, rebelled. Rajaraja used the chaos to launch an attack. Chola army destroyed the capital, Anuradhapura. Queen and royal treasures were captured. Buddhist temples were looted and sacred items stolen. Cholas built Hindu temples and left soldiers behind. Sri Lanka became part of the Chola Empire. Rajaraja now controlled the Palk Strait, a key trade route. The Cholas gained power, wealth, and dominance over the region. Would you like a timeline, map, or character story version of this summary? Sure. Here's a bold and simple summary of the passage you provided, told in clear language and with extra explanations to help you deeply understand. Summary: Rajaraja Chola's expansion and setback in the Deccan. After conquering northern Sri Lanka, Rajaraja Chola became the most powerful ruler in southern. This history gave him control over two important areas. One, the southern tip of India, where his empire was based. Two, the Palk Strait, a narrow stretch of sea between India and Sri Lanka, like a water doorway for ships. This strait was extremely important for sea trade between East Asia, like China, West Asia, like Arabia and Egypt, and South Asia, like India and Sri Lanka. By controlling this area, Rajaraja could now charge traders for passing through, which made him and his business partners, merchant guilds, very rich. A new opportunity to expand 974 CE. In the year 74, a king named Marasimha the Sikh of the Ganga dynasty, a kingdom in Karnataka, died. When a strong king dies, it often causes political confusion and weakness. Rajaraja saw this as a perfect chance to move in and grab more territory, especially areas with land trade routes between the Deccan Plateau, central South India, and Tamilakam, the Tamil region. This meant that Rajaraja wasn't just trying to control sea trade anymore. He also wanted to rule the land roads used by merchants. Conquering Kongu and moving north. Rajaraja's generals began by attacking forts in Kongu, a region with many hill forts. This area lay between the dry, rocky lands of the Deccan and the green farmland of Tamilakam. Taking this region helped build a path northward. In 991 CE, Rajaraja personally led an army to a region called Gangavati in Karnataka, hoping to continue his conquest. At first, no one resisted him, and things looked easy. A sudden and strong enemy. But suddenly, a powerful king named Chalukya, the most dominant ruler of the Deccan at the time, rushed to stop Rajaraja with his army. This was the first major war between the Chola and Chalukya empires. The result was a huge defeat for Rajaraja. He lost badly in battle. He also lost 150 war elephants, which were extremely important in ancient Indian warfare. Elephants were like tanks and also showed a king's wealth and military power. Losing them was a major blow to his status as a warrior king. A bit of luck, Rajaraja's reprieve. Even though this was a major setback, Rajaraja got lucky. Right after his victory, Tala Chalukya died, not mentioned fully in the passage, but known from history. This stopped any further attack on Rajaraja and gave him a chance to recover, rebuild his army, and plan his next moves. Big picture. What this shows about Rajaraja. Rajaraja Chola was ambitious. He wanted to control land and sea trade. He took bold steps by attacking powerful kingdoms. He won big in Sri Lanka, but also suffered big in the Deccan. He was strategic and quick to act, but he also learned from failure. Even when he lost, he didn't give up, and future events would show how he came back even stronger. Would you like a map, diagram, or a visual timeline to help remember this better? Here is a great, detailed, and simple summary of the entire passage you shared. Summary: the rise of Rajaraja Chola's power. After conquering Sri Lanka, Rajaraja Chola gained control over not just land, but also the Palk Strait, a narrow sea passage between India and Sri Lanka. This was very important because it connected the eastern and western parts of the Indian Ocean, which were busy with international trade. Controlling this area meant Rajaraja could make huge profits by managing and taxing the flow of goods between East Asia, South Asia, and the Middle East. At the same time, in 974 CE, the Ganga king Marasimha the Sikh died. This created a chance for Rajaraja to take over new areas and trade routes between the southern Deccan Plateau and the Tamil region. Rajaraja's generals attacked and captured the hill forts in Kongu, which is where the dry highlands turned into green farming land in Tamil Nadu. In 991 CE, Rajaraja himself moved into Gangavati, a wealthy region in Karnataka. He faced no resistance at first, but then his enemy Tala Chalukya, a strong and experienced Deccan king, arrived with an army. In the battle that followed, Rajaraja lost badly. He even lost 150 war elephants, which was a big humiliation because elephants were like of a king's power and pride. But Rajaraja, before Tala could finish him off, another king named Vakpati Paramara attacked Tala's land in the north. So Tala had to go back to defend his kingdom, leaving Gangavati in Rajaraja's control. Even though Rajaraja kept the land, he was ashamed by the defeat. He is said to have made a serious promise. He would not go hunting again, which kings loved to do for fun and pride, until he had attacked and captured Tala's capital city, Manyaketa. In 997 CE, Chalukya died. He had brought back some power to the Deccan region and started a new royal family line, dynasty. His son, who took over, called himself Satyashraya, a royal title that meant protector of truth. This title was used by Pulakeshin Sek, a very famous king from their family in the past. By using the same name, the new king tried to connect himself to that powerful past. Meanwhile, Raja was growing stronger. He had conquered Gangavati, a region that earlier rulers had tried and failed to control. He had destroyed the Pallavas, brought the Chera and Pandya kings under his control, and taken over large parts of Sri Lanka. He was now including local hill kings and tribal chiefs from the Deccan into his empire. He even built Chola-style temples in places like modern-day Bengaluru. At this point, the Deccan region had never faced such a powerful and expanding empire as the Cholas. And Rajaraja was just getting started. More victories and expansion were still to come. Would you like this summary as a visual timeline or in bullet points for easier revision? Here is a great detail of the passage you shared, written in a way that's easy for anyone to understand, even if you're new. Detailed summary, Rajaraja Chola and the Vengi conquest. After facing a temporary block in expanding northwest due to the powerful Chalukya kingdom, Rajaraja Chola looked for easier targets to grow his empire. He found the perfect eastern region of Vengi, Pradesh. Vengi was a very important place. It had access to eastern sea trade, which meant any ruler of Vengi could earn huge money from trade with countries across Asia. However, Vengi had a major problem. Its royal family had been fighting internally for a long time. The Rashtrakutas, a past empire, had messed up the politics of Vengi by constantly interfering, which led to constant civil wars and royal instability. During one of these civil wars, two royal princes from Vengi fled to the south and came to Rajaraja Chola's court for help. Rajaraja used this moment wisely. He sent his army, conquered Vengi, and placed the elder prince as king. The younger prince stayed with Rajaraja and even married Rajaraja's daughter, a strong family bond between the Cholas and the Vengi royal line. This marriage was very important. It would eventually affect the future of the Chola royal family, leading to both the rise and the fall of Rajaraja's family line. By the year 1000 CE, Rajaraja had become one of the most powerful kings in South Asia. His military victories and smart political moves had changed the map of trade and power in the Indian Ocean. Thanks to him, the Cholas controlled the Palk Strait, a key sea passage between India and Sri Lanka. Other big kingdoms controlled other trade routes too. Fatimids ruled the Red Sea area. Srivijaya Empire ruled the Malacca, Southeast Asia. Song dynasty ruled China. With powerful, stable kingdoms like the Cholas in charge of trade routes, international sea trade exploded. Ships carried goods between East, West, and South Asia more than ever before. As a result, the Chola Empire became very rich, and Rajaraja Chola's rule had a huge, lasting impact on global history. Would you like this turned into a timeline, map, or illustrated story for easier learning? Sure. Here's a great, simple summary of everything you just read about Chola and his amazing temple. Detailed summary. The Great Temple of Rajaraja Chola. Rajaraja Chola was a very powerful king from South India, ruling over 1,000 years ago. He became rich and famous by winning wars and controlling trade routes across the Indian Ocean. With all the wealth he could places like Sri Lanka, Kerala, the Pandyas, the Chalukyas, and others, he decided to build something truly grand, a huge temple. This temple was called Rajarajeshwaram, meaning Lord of Rajaraja, and today it's known as the Brihadishvara Temple, or simply the Big Temple. It was built in Thanjavur, the capital of the Chola Empire. This temple was not ordinary. It was 40 times bigger than the usual temples of that time. It used massive amounts of granite, which had to be brought from far away using boats, animals, and a lot of effort. That showed how powerful and rich the king was, because only someone with great resources could make such a building. The temple wasn't just a place for worship. It was a symbol of Rajaraja's greatness. It showed people and even other kings that the Cholas were mighty, wealthy, and blessed by the gods. Rajaraja, his sister, his army generals, and other noble people donated huge amounts of gold, silver, gemstones, perfumes, and royal items, like parasols and trumpets, to the temple. Many of these treasures were taken from enemies in war or bought through international trade. The temple even had items from faraway lands, showing that the Cholas were connected to the globe. To keep the temple running, villages from all over the Chola Empire, even in faraway Sri Lanka, had to send food and resources regularly. This helped the temple stay active and wealthy for years. In the end, this temple became a monument of power, religion, wealth, and politics. It told the world Chola Empire under Rajaraja was a mighty force with great leadership and connections across Asia. Would you like this summary in story format or timeline format as well?